Hi, I am Yuet Mitchell, a special education needs officer attached to NSERD. Today, we will be dealing with knowing your learners, creating a learner profile. Well, when we think about what is a learner profile, I like to look at it this way. First of all, what is a profile? What is in a profile? When you think of a profile, you think of short information about a person or an organization. Take, for instance, your Facebook profile. What information you find in that Facebook profile? You find information like your name, the country you live, things you like to do, your level of education, the school you attended, and so on. So in this case, a learner profile is a document, it's a tool that has information related to a specific student. Right. When we create learner profiles, all right, we must remember, teachers, that this document is a live, living, dynamic document. By that, I mean the learner profile that you created in grade 1 will be very different from the learner profile at the end of grade 2, let's say, all right? So we would advise that teachers, when you have that learner profile you created at the beginning, you're going to be adding information because remember, the children are within your sphere. You are observing and you continue learning. So this is a live document that as you learn more information about the students, you add to the document so it keep growing. And it is a good way for students to be able to even track their own development and their progress because at the beginning of grade 1, Serenity was a shy little girl. She wasn't talking to anybody, but because of the way in which the teacher engaged her in her discussion, Serenity speaks more. She talks, she asks questions now, and that is something I would want to record in my learner profile. But that information was not present at the beginning of the term, but as I update, and record the progress towards the end, I can add that she is now moving away from being an introvert and she's now more interactive and so on with her peers. When we think of the importance of creating a learner profile, in the classroom, the teacher is there to facilitate learning. And the students, the learners, are the most important person within that space. All right, and if is it that the teacher does not know her learners, she will not be able to create an environment or deliver the curriculum in such a way that it is a good fit for the students. Students are different. We have different needs, different abilities and skills. So if the teacher takes some time to create a learner profile, get to know each student, then he or she will be able to better deliver the curriculum and meet the needs of the learners at the same time. What is included in a learner profile? We, like I said earlier, information relating to the individual student. So you have different kinds of information. First, you can have social information about the learner, and then you can have information, more learner specific information about that student. When we talk about social information, we want to go into the background of the student, where they live, what they like, what family structure he or she is from. Does this student make friends easily? What would this student do if he or she is sad? You tap into their likes, their hobbies, what make he or she feel comfortable or afraid. So those kind of background information about the social aspect of a learner is captured in that segment called the social information in the learner profile. Then we go over to the uh, yes. Then we go over to the learner information within the profile. Now, Students learn differently, and the teacher's job is to be able to find out how the student prefers or prefer method of taking information. While I agree with Tomlinson 2017 that says, an expert teacher, a good teacher, an excellent teacher will create multiple opportunities for students to learn. However, it is important that we consider what stage, developmental stage, a learner is at. Piaget spoke about the different stages. So at the pre-operational stage, if the child is at that stage, there are certain characteristics that goes along with that stage. If they're the concrete operational stage from 7 to 11, there are specifics that go along with that. So within that learner information, you take in all that kind of information. Does the student have any learning challenges or needs that need to be considered when you're teaching them? What the student would like to learn. Sometimes as teachers, we think that, okay, we're going to deliver this curriculum, but remember, in this renewed curriculum that we're having, the student, the learner, is the most important person. So we have to consider what they'd like to learn, how they would like to learn. So those information are critical when we're creating our learner profile. All right, sources of information for the learner profile. Now think about it. If you meet a new friend, how will you get information? How will you get to know that friend? Or let's say you're having a new relationship. What will you do to get information? If I have a new friend, someone I meet for this time, I will get to know that person by asking them questions, talking about them. They will tell me what they like, and I'll observe them as well, so I get to learn about them. Similarly, when we want to get information for the learner profile, we can observe, we can ask questions, we can do interviews with them depending on the age of the learner. For very small students, very small learners, we can, as a teacher, I can ask the question, hello, Jaden, I am your new teacher this year. What is your name? I would like to get to know more about you this year. So you can actually talk with them and get that information. You can also, as I said just now, we can observe the student to get to learn more about the student. In addition, we can do what we call assess or diagnose the student. Let's say you are in the case of you're having a new relationship interest, all right? You will do some background work. You will check up, you will ask their friends, people who know them, about them. So for students, we can ask their parents. We can ask their previous teacher about the student. We can even look at their report card to get some information about them. We can check any other document that document any information, their cumulative card and so on. We could look at those to get information. So those are some of the sources of we can get information to put into our learner profile. There are several templates that we can follow when creating learner profiles. For example, we have the SWOT analysis approach, where we look at the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities, and barriers to learning. All right? And very importantly, when creating learner profiles, you want to start from a position of the learner's strength. What are they good at? Their interests and so on. And then you build on that. All right? And then there's the other approach, which is a more universal approach, the ULD-based learning profile. This is a more universal template where we talk about access, how the student access information, how they engage, how they express, and so forth. In this section, I will share with you an example based on the Universal Design Template. Here we have a learner in terms of accessing the information. When we talk about how the student access information in terms of their strength, this student is a visual learner, all right? So the student would learn better. One strength is to have visual supports like mnemonics or teaching aids and graphs and diagrams and so on. Another strength of this student is that she learns well when she can make real life connections and she has examples to follow. One or two things that make learning not so fun, she said, when the presentation is abstract, loaded with complex jargons and slangs that she doesn't understand and she doesn't have any background information on. In terms of expressing, how the student like to express. She said, listen, after I would have learned something, I can do a report. I can teach it to others. That is the best way for me. How I do not like, she said, don't ask her to make a model or to draw, illustrate. That's not something that she would like to do. And this particular student used two words to describe herself. She said, smart, but yet reserved. And in terms of her interests, she said she liked cooking and baking and traveling and so on. In terms of goals that the student has, in 3 to 5 years or so, she would like to advance in her career in specific areas and so on. So here, this is one example that can be used for, and that's more for an adult, more mature learner, maybe at the secondary level. But if we could come down to the smaller children at the primary level, in terms of accessing, the child said two things that can make it easy for him to learn is that he can read very quickly and he knows lots of words. But in terms of challenges, this same student is saying, I have a hard time picturing what I read. And I have a hard time reading online. So those are important information for the teacher to take in terms of when she's having students access information. So that student might need a little extra time in order to process, because although he can read quickly, interpreting and understanding what is read is a little difficult for that student. And in terms of engaging, what makes learning fun for that student? He said, I like when I have to research and find out things on my own. So that's important in your classroom as a teacher. He also said, I like to organize the information I collect about new topic. So right away, you see, as a teacher, for this particular student, you don't have to do all the research. The student is willing to do the research for himself and discover for himself. In terms of things that are not fun about learning, he said, I do not always understand what others say to me. I get confused when trying to listen to a lot of people speaking at the same time. Critical for a teacher to know that, she will have to control group discussions and so on, so that this student is not distracted. In terms of how he like to express what he has learned, he said, I like to write reports about things that I do and events that happen in real life. I like to go back over things that I've learned so that I can keep track of the progress that I am making. Challenges in terms of what is not so fun. I don't like to speak or present to a group. I stammer sometimes when I speak. So the teacher would have to create an environment where the student feel comfortable and working in small group instead of working in a large group and so on. This student described himself as quiet and independent. His interest is writing and fishing. So, as a teacher, all those information would be critical in you meeting the needs of your students and creating an environment, a classroom where these children will thrive and grow and develop. All right, so teachers, it is important that we take some time to get to know our learners, to get to know our students. We cannot effectively teach, we cannot effectively deliver the curriculum if we don't know the student. Our ultimate goal is to be a good fit for us and our students so that learning can take place. So have fun creating and using Learner Profile.